It is estimated that nearly 25% of the population of the United States, some 70 million people, will use illegal drugs or misuse prescription drugs this year. It's unknown how many of them using illegal drugs will fall into chronic drug use. The illegal use of drugs will cost the United States some $120 billion annually and kill 213 people daily in this country. The personal cost of addiction is often the loss of family, freedom, years of abusive relationships, and homelessness and missed opportunities. Our guest today is no stranger to the rough and rocky road of drug addiction. She has spent much of her life in prison, spurred by her addiction. But her story of recovery and redemption is an amazing story. She is now a counselor for Lane Change in Lebanon and spends some of her time back in jail, now as a counselor helping people that are confined in jail with the issues that plagued her for many years. I'm David Millsap, and in the box today is Stacey Dismang-Wright. Stacey, welcome. And we have an interesting relationship, you and I. In March of 2021, when I was sheriff, we executed a search warrant on a homicide case, and we were looking for drugs as well. You were at that location, not involved in the homicide investigation. You were arrested for possession of methamphetamine, not the first time that you'd been arrested.
No.
I looked at you and I said something, Stacey, I've been dealing with you since you were 14, and you looked at me and said, since I was 12. But that was the beginning of a new era for you, that arrest on that day. What clicked that day in March of 2021?
I was certain that whenever they charged me with prior persistent, that is a non-parolable offense, and I was facing up to 35 years. And my mom is ill, and I was certain that my mom was going to be dead by the time I got home from prison. And so I knew that day that I had to change my life. I had only been relapsed for approximately 3 weeks. And it was the most miserable time that I had ever, within 5 days, I was suicidal. 5 days into a relapse and suicidal. That just speaks to how lonely and desperate you become so quickly.
And to give people a sense of your history, how many total years do you think you spent in prison and in jail during your lifetime?
Just a little over 21 between the two.
So 21 years of issues, and we talked that many of those issues started at home, and you running away as a juvenile and being arrested. And when did your addiction to drugs start?
So alcohol 10, meth 13. I started using meth at 13. By the time I was 14, I had started intravenous use of meth. But I was a drinker all the way through there. It really took a hold at 18, became something that was very consistent, like daily.
And you talked about in March of 2021 that you had relapsed and you were only 5 days into that prior to being arrested. How often during that 21 years that you were spending time in prison and you would come back that you would get clean but then fall back into that? How often did that happen?
So the first time that I was in prison, I used almost consistently all the way through it. Like I came home from prison dirty for meth, marijuana, and heroin. But whenever I went back the next time, I was pregnant, and I smoked a joint on the track, and they shut the yard down and everybody quit moving, and they were doing a big search. And as I was walking back in, I was with a friend of mine who is from Lebanon, who I'd smoked the joint with, and they stopped her to drop on her. And I thought, I'm in prison, I am pregnant, and I'm out here smoking weed. I will never get high in prison again. And so every time I went to prison, I would not get high. So I would have periods of sobriety, 3 years in prison, but But as soon as I got home, one emotional situation that was excessive, in my opinion, because I had an unwillingness and an inability to really deal with excessive emotions, I would just start getting high again.
Protect what matters most with professionally installed Brinks Home Security System. I'm David Millsap, and Electronic Solutions of Lebanon, Alarms.net, believes in what I believe, protecting what is valued. Electronic Solutions of Lebanon, Alarms.net, is the area's authorized Brinks Home Security dealer, serving the Lebanon and the Lake of the Ozarks areas for over 20 years. We provide custom security solutions for your home or business, providing top-of-the-line burglar and fire alarms, state-of-the-art camera systems, home automation, and more. Control your system from home or on the go with our super convenient mobile app. It's even so easy, I can do it. 24/7 monitor alarm systems from Brinks Homes start at $99 for qualifying customers. Or you can skip the contract and purchase our award-winning systems outright. Call us at 866-588-9228 or stop by our office at 120 East Commercial Street, downtown Lebanon, across from the post office. And when you talk about going to prison, and I think that people need to understand that, they'll say, well, I've never had a relative that had a drug problem, or I've not experienced that. The drug problem in Laclede County or any county, it doesn't make any difference, touches everybody, because that addiction spurs other criminal activity. You didn't always just go to prison because you were in possession of meth. There were times when you're out stealing, those types of things, and you get caught doing that violates a parole or probation.
Actually, David, I've never had a stealing case.
Oh, really?
Well, I had one, and I was found not guilty of it too, and was found not guilty on both of those. I was a drug dealer, not a stealer. I thought it was one of those cases where I thought that I was better than people who were stealing because I was dealing, which one feeds the other,
right?
Chronically.
Right. And I think that was my point. If you think you've never been touched by the drug issue,
you have.
But you have, because your insurance rates go up, because theft goes up, or whatever it may be. And then those that fall into addiction often, and this is not an excuse for the behavior, but are abusive to other people in relationships.
Yes.
And that may spur the victim of that abuse, which 85% of the time is women, to get deeper in their addiction, correct?
Absolutely. Well, it causes PTSD. And I do a group called Seeking Safety that treats both PTSD and substance abuse at the same time, which is nearly unheard of. But one feeds the other. Just like criminal activity is fed by drug addiction, substance abuse is fed by PTSD, and PTSD is fed by substance abuse. It all goes hand in hand. Whenever you walk into Walmart and you see the big screen and it's got your face on it and it's got facial recognition, that is from drug dealing. That is a direct line from drug sales and drug addiction, because people have robbed them.
So now you go back into jail.
Yes.
And I want to take you back to the time when that first happened. So you get arrested in 2021. You're looking at life in prison, and your mother's ill, so you know that the likelihood of you being here during crucial family times that's not going to happen.
Right.
You had other relatives that you were mentoring in criminal behavior. Tell me about that.
So I didn't raise any of my own children, but I helped my sister to raise hers. And I just really taught them that it was okay to be an inmate. It was okay to be a drug addict, and it was okay to go to prison back and forth as many times as you did, as long as you didn't tell on anybody. That was your job, was to be the best drug addict and inmate that you could be. And
not give up that information about what was going on. And I shared with you that name of the show is In the Box, which is
Mhm.
taken from that when we would do interview and interrogations with people, we'd call that you were in the box with somebody. You've been in the box many
Many
times,
times.
questioning about a variety of things. It's odd for you and I to sit here and have a discussion, isn't it?
It is.
And I'm so proud of you and the
Thank you.
way that you have battled through this, survived this, and now you're making a difference in other people's lives. So you walk back into that jail in 2022 after graduating from drug court as a counselor for lane change. That must have been a surreal moment.
It really was. So I started working at Lane Change, and Lauren said, "Do you want to go to the jail?" I said, "If they'll let me, you know." And so that day they took my information, and that next week I got to start. And so it is one of my passions. It really is.
You know, I talked to you were started that while I was still sheriff, and I remember talking to a couple of the commanders in the jail, and they would talk about how well you would do with the inmates because not only have you been there, you know when to call them on stuff that they're lying to you about because you've been there. So how do you relate to them? How do you talk to them about their addiction?
Very brutally, with love.
Right.
Because you can't run game on me. I've run all that game. And I let them know that I am there because I am passionate about them never having to come back to jail. I am passionate about them never having to suffer through substance abuse again. It is always going to be a battle. Like even now, it's not always easy to stay sober.
Right. And so when you're sitting there talking to them, and you must have been in that situation at some point. I don't know what was available prior to I became sheriff in 2017, but there's always been jailhouse ministry, and in prison you get a lot of that as well,
Yes.
And counseling and all that. How do you get them to buy into the things that you didn't buy into?
Well, I think I probably just have a different approach. Like, I am an inmate. At my core, that is what I was for so many years. And I am also a living testament that if you put in the work, you develop emotional intelligence, you develop good decision-making skills, you learn how to structure your own life, and you deal with the trauma that kept you up in the middle of the night. Have you ever been asleep and woken up and you're short of breath and there's a pit in your stomach and your mind is racing? Those are the things that keep addicts in their addiction. So I encourage them, let's work through that. Let's do a fourth step. Let's do step work. Let's do seeking safety and figure out what your red and green flags are. Because whenever you have been in substance abuse and through trauma, you have desensitized yourself to danger, so that whenever you move into safety, it feels dangerous. And learning the cues on how to differentiate, recognize danger. Like I've had 5 roommates who were murderers, all doing life without in parole. So at one time. So you become desensitized to the fact that you could be hurt, that this is a dangerous situation. So I just work on teaching them to learn and recognize your own cues.
So in 2021, after that arrest, you get chosen to go to drug court.
Yes.
Which you become one of the first graduates of that. And I know in Laclede County in Lebanon, we've talked a lot about drug court, and it has done remarkable things, and obviously remarkable things for you. Take us through the steps of what drug court does for you.
So drug court takes all of your obstacles out of the way. If you have a problem with housing, they'll help you figure it out. Whenever I got COVID the first time, I could not work, and they brought me groceries.
And and I guess that's what a lot of people don't. And I've heard Larry Winfrey talk about this so often, that trying to recover from your addiction when when your car doesn't work,
Right.
or you're behind on your electric bill, you can't concentrate on your addiction because you're concentrating on groceries
Yes.
or paying the electric bill. And drug court has a helping hand to that. But it's not a free ride.
No, you pay those things back. Not the groceries, of course. But say you need help with your electric bill, then you would call probably Lieutenant Wright or Shelley with OCCS or Steve with CPS, and you would tell them, hey, my electricity is getting ready to get shut off. And they would put a message out to the team. The team would then talk about it. The bill would be paid, or we would help you find someone to help you pay it because of MOCA, you know, and other programs. We are very fortunate to live in Laclede County where there is such a collaboration between programs. That's just a side note. But that amount of money will go on to the end of your treatment court fees. Treatment court, you have to have a buy-in. So it is 18 to 24 months, and it is an $1,800 fee to be in treatment court. Now, there are other counties that do not enforce the fee. But to me, not only did I pay my $1,800, I also paid off 3 different restitution bills or jail bills or past fines that I had. And if you know anything about how they take your money at the end of like your state taxes, I still owe $8,800 and some odd dollars. And they take mine and my husband's state taxes every year, because there is a disconnect within the criminal lifestyle on if we should pay forget about that bill. I don't care about a jail bill. But it taught me the responsibility of paying the courts.
And the other, and so I think that's important too, because it makes you have a buy-in. And
Absolutely.
The other thing about treatment court that I think people don't get, and they think, well, this is just one of those, and Larry Winfrey called it. And I remember I was in the very first meetings of all of this, was hug a thug type thing, that hey, if you need to go to jail, you need to be in jail, you're breaking the law. And I think it's educated a lot of people within the system, like myself, because I never thought about that you couldn't concentrate on your addiction because you couldn't pay your electric bill, or you couldn't pay, your car is broke down and you couldn't get it fixed. Because I come from that mindset, Stacey, of, well, that's your problem. That you're doing something illegal. Stop it. Just stop it. And I will get to why you can't do that in a minute. But the thing about drug court is that when you get into that, they're in your face in a nice way, but they're in your life. And they control a lot of things going on in your life, much more than probation and parole ever did.
Absolutely. So you call in every day to see if you have to drop, and your amount of drops changes per
and to
phase.
Explain what a drop is, because not everybody's
It's a urinalysis.
Right.
And so I would call in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I scheduled everything while I was in treatment court around my work schedule. So I would call in at 7 o'clock in the morning. I had to be at work at 9, so I would drop by 8:30 and then drive to Bennett Springs. I was working at Bennett Springs at that time. And they enforce the fact that you need therapy. If you have trauma, you need therapy. You need to go to meetings. And it's not a one-size-fits-all, because some people like faith-based, some people like NA, some people like AA. It's let's find what works for you. And I was just from the very beginning very transparent with treatment court about what I felt was going on with me. Whenever my husband and I weren't married yet, and he drank, and he would not quit drinking. So we broke up. We were already living in separate houses. And I called treatment court and I said, Douglas and I have just broken up, and we won't be back together until Douglas stops drinking. And if he doesn't, we won't be. And that was very difficult, you know. There were a lot of difficult decisions in treatment court because I was very defiant. So I was really bad about going to national TV and buying things on payments. And I had went and gotten my daughter a computer at National. She was getting ready to go to the Kansas City Art Institute, and she needed a laptop to be able to do her portfolio. And they put me on a $100 spend limit. If I wanted to buy something that was over $100, I had to ask permission. And my defiance in my own mind was that I was going to put myself on a $60 spend limit. And that is really what changed my defiance to compliance. You know?
Yeah. So, and that's what's so interesting about drug court is you take somebody like you, Stacey, that had spent their lifetime defying authority, right? From the time you met me as a juvenile officer and not doing whatever I told you to do, whatever that might have been, to the assistant principal at the junior high, to probation and parole officers, to judges, is that you finally, if you want to complete this program, that defiance has to be put in your back pocket somewhere.
Well, and it went beyond completing the program. It went to having a productive, prosperous life in the free world. It went to, I didn't want to be 7630 anymore. That was my inmate number. I wanted to be Stacey. And I didn't know how to spend 5 minutes in my living room. I didn't. It was uncomfortable. It was foreign. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions or even name my emotions. And so after my arrest in 21, I started going to lane change. And I was very fortunate that John McGinnis was there. And he had been with my oldest friend, and I trusted him. We've ridden to prison together. We've gotten high together. We've done all the things. So I trusted him. And whenever I would be struggling with something, I would just say, John, I can't sit in my living room. My bedroom is my cell. And so we came up with a plan. And now I can sit in my living room all night long, you know, and now I can identify my emotions as I have them, because emotional unintelligence is one of the key factors to substance abuse, in my opinion.
Okay, and explain that.
So whenever you don't know your emotions, you can't identify them, you don't know how to feel them, everything comes out as anger. Well, anger is a secondary emotion felt when the subconscious mind is afraid to feel the primary emotion. So everything is anger. That's the way I was. Everything was anger. I didn't want to cry. If I was happy, I was mad. There was no emotional that was acceptable to me besides anger. So I had to get up under it. That's a secondary emotion. What is my primary emotion? So what I am working to teach even the men, because I do the men's group too at jail, is, okay, you're angry. Here's an emotion wheel. Let's get up underneath of it. Let's figure out what the driving emotions are. When was the first time you remember feeling them? What age were you? What was your situation? Because you probably haven't dealt from that situation. You haven't healed. So let's start healing, because that's the only way to move forward is through healing and growth.
So as you said on the drug court now, and I think on Fridays is when the participants will come in and meet with the court, kind of a checkup. And I know almost everybody that's on the court, and you're the only one that I know of that's on the court that has lived the life.
Yeah, I am.
Are you able to, when not the inmate, but the participant leaves, are you able to look at the rest of the group and say, hey, listen, I'm not buying this? Are you able to see things that they can't see?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I am also the participants also share with me things that they would never share with anyone else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I am so blessed to be able to be a part of this program because we are different than any other treatment court, I would say, in the United States.
Yeah.
We really feed our participants. And I don't think that I would be a part of it if I didn't believe in it so much.
I want to talk about your faith a little bit because I think it's interesting, and you brought that up, that some will grasp onto the faith aspect of getting clean and of treatment. And again, I'm not on the treatment court, but I was part of all the emails and all those that when they would send out and talk about people. It seems to me that we have a number of them grasping to that. Your faith, the development of your faith during drug court, I think, has really made a difference.
Absolutely. It really just came down to, I don't know if I would have made it if it was not for my complete and utter submission and surrender to Christ. Because I knew that I had tried every single thing that I possibly could. I started going to Lane Change whenever it was only open 2 days a week. And I would, like, whenever I had to go to a meeting at Lane Change, I would stop getting high at midnight the night before, and I would not get high until after the meeting, which is harm reduction. I know that now. I didn't know that then, but I didn't want to be disrespectful to them. So, like, God can. I can't. I have tried everything. I have tried only getting high 2 days a week. I have been in the penitentiary sober for 36, 38, 39 months and come out and only been sober for 2 weeks or 2 hours, if I'm honest.
And so part of that faith, and this is the difficult part for all Christians, is almost this, you're forgiven, but it's that self-forgiveness. You seem to have reached a point to where the old Stacey never existed. Do you feel that way in some ways?
I do sometimes. But she's still there. I still have to do the maintenance. Self-forgiveness is the hardest thing. Yeah. All of that baggage, like, because I've got a backpack and I've got a wheelbarrow and I've got 2 red flyer wagons that are all tied together and with a rope around my waist of all of my baggage that I could pull around and let hinder me. But I'm not that person today. I would not make those same decisions today. I would not.
So that self-forgiveness, but I think it's interesting that that background also assists you in what you're doing, but to look at yourself and go, I'm not that person anymore, is so important, I think, for your work.
It is absolutely for my work, for my family relationships, because I was parenting out of guilt. Because even though I didn't raise my kids, I still have a relationship with 2 of the 3 of them. And I was parenting out of guilt, trying to fix things with monetary abundance. And not that I have abundance, but, trying to fix things with buying. And you can't. I can't fix anything I did yesterday. None of that can be changed. All I can do is make a better decision today, be a better person today, and work as hard as I can not to become that same person again tomorrow, And
I would think that there would be some guilt association of, I wish I had done this 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But sometimes the timing has to be just right.
It's God's timing.
Yeah. And so I think it's interesting that, you talked about teaching people and family members how to be better criminals, that your time has come to teach people not to be criminals.
Yes.
Yeah.
And recognize criminal thinking, which every single person in the world has. It's not just people who are addicts or who are in the lifestyle of breaking the law. You have criminal thinking. The difference is you don't act on it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just about recognizing a thought as a criminal thought, which a criminal thought is running a stop sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to take you back to prison because the vast majority of people, we in law enforcement, we only deal with about 3% of the population. It seems like some days it's everybody, but it's not. It's only about 3% of the population. What's life in prison in Missouri like?
Well, it's changed a lot. It's easy and it's hard. Like, you are separated from everything and everyone that you love, but you build relationships and families with the people that are there. You have to go to work every day. So you learn a good work ethic. You are able to go to school to learn a trade. But you have someone who tells you that you have to stand up by your bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. You have someone who tells you what you can eat, what you can't eat. I think prison for me was home for a lot of years because it was so structured. And myself, I didn't realize that I needed all that structure. It never clicked in my mind. It's also very dangerous.
Yeah. Explain that.
Well, you may be sitting next to someone who has a razor blade in their hair or that is crazy and has a life without sentence and has no concern about your life.
And that's one of the things that the people that are doing life, that there is no repercussion for them to not commit that assault.
Right.
While they're in prison.
Well, not if they've gone through all of their appeals.
Right.
And their habeases.
Right.
Because most people who have life without sentences, the majority, I'm going to say just about 70% of people who have life sentences for murder are one-offs. It would never have happened again with them.
Right.
So a lot of them are working to change who they are. They're doing classes. They're leading classes. They are leaders within the penitentiary. But you have that other 30% who are never going home. They know they're never going to win an appeal, and they are dangerous.
And so one of the things that people don't get in the system is, that have not been in the system, is there are people that can go to prison like yourself and look at that of a 120-day sentence, which is nothing, or a 5-year sentence and go, I can do that standing on my head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can do 120 days in the hole. Right. You know what I mean? My first time in the hole, I did 7.5 months.
And explain what you mean by that.
The hole is segregation.
Right.
There's administrative segregation, and then there's disciplinary segregation. Disciplinary segregation is anywhere from 1 to 30 days. Administrative segregation is anywhere from 30 days to a year, but you have a hearing every 60 days because administration has to keep you there. And so this idea that you can solve the drug problem with, now I will tell you, people that are drug dealers to me need to be in prison, but people that have drug issues, drug problems, by sending them to prison, that's going to solve that. Those that have been there know how to survive that. Yes. And would you also agree, they have no fear to going back? Whenever you realize that prison is the worst thing that they can do to you, because you can become comfortable there. You grow relationships with people there. You love them, and they are people who are never getting out of prison. So it's very easy to go back. You become institutionalized.
Right.
Where the free world is foreign, you feel like an outsider and an outcast. And so it's just easier to be there. You don't have to deal with your emotions. You don't have to deal with electric bills. You don't have to deal with insurance on your car. You never have to worry about getting a driver's license. They assign you a job, you know?
So, and I think people that are watching us and listening would be surprised. And I've heard this from several people that went through the jail. They would rather be in prison than the county jail.
Yeah.
Because there was more freedom,
Uh-huh.
more things to do. County jail, you don't have a job. You sit around waiting. It's pretrial confinement most of the time. You may get a sentence, but that's only a year if you're actually sentenced to jail.
Right.
So you're in pre-confinement based on your case. And most of them would rather be in prison than county jail.
Oh, yeah. Phone calls are cheaper in prison. They're 5 cents a minute. Emails are 25 cents an email for a 2,500 character email. You know, you get to move around. You can join a baseball team. You can join a volleyball team. You can do a workout class. You can go to school. You can check out books in the library. All of the things that you can't do here in the county jail. Of course, and now county doesn't even have a gym.
Right.
That's where the women are housed. So it is definitely.
And for those that are out there, and I would be one of those that would say, well, it'll stop all that, and people will hate to go to that. But people don't understand that part of the prison system is to get people in a structured environment and maybe teach them some structure. Now, whether they take that with them or not is up to them.
Right.
The other part of that, and people don't understand this, is that too much lockdown, too much idle time results in bad things happening in places where people are confined.
It really does, because tempers, you become irritable. It is almost like a cabin fever, and it can cause a lot of acts of violence and mental instability.
Right, right. And I think people get this misconception of lock them down, feed them bread and water. That doesn't work.
No.
And in that, your story is unbelievable, that you've done all this time in prison and now the way things have changed. And just to listen to you speak so intelligently about the topic of addiction. And again, I know you seem to just have found your passion. And sometimes in life, I think, and sometimes it takes a long time to find that. You've found your passion, haven't you?
Yeah. Yes. Even in my addiction, I wanted to help people. I was the person that everybody came to whenever they had a problem, and we would try to work it out. But at the end of trying to work it out, we would get high. So whenever I got sober and got into recovery, I knew that there was a bigger plan for me. That all of the things, and I think that if I had gotten sober 20 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do the job I do today, even 10 years ago. But all of those stumbling blocks, I have turned into building blocks with the help of God to build me to be the person to do the thing that God intended me to do. And that is to help people come out of the darkness.
And, we talked about in the opening that 213 people daily die of drug addiction. How lucky was Stacey that she was not one of those statistics?
I was very lucky.
And your addiction started young, alcohol, then marijuana, then into meth. And meth was really, it still is today in this county, that is the drug of choice.
Yes. Fentanyl is really edging in.
It is. And what I would tell people, see if you would agree with this, meth will eventually kill you. It'll eventually get fentanyl, heroin may kill you today.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, and that's the difference between those two drugs and stuff.
I think it's important to understand, though, that in the manufacturing of methamphetamine today, the cartels are putting fentanyl. Very trace amounts, which is just enough to create a physical dependence, because meth is a psychologically addicting disease, drug. So the trace amount over a period of time causes physical withdrawal symptoms. So if you get somebody who is cutting besides that with fentanyl, you can die, because fentanyl is so unregulated in the manufacture of it. Like, it's not a patch that you get or a shot that you get at the hospital. the process of it causes hot spots. And whenever they put that into the cook, the hot spot could be in this 1/4 gram right here. And so you think that you're doing meth and you're overdosing from fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in everything now.
So dangerous.
So dangerous.
And you talk about the cartels, and we saw probably starting in about the mid to 2015, 13, 14, somewhere around in there, the cartels really became the distributors of methamphetamine in Missouri. Prior to that, and you lived through this, was the homemade Nazi dope that they would make in the back of a car in somebody's bathroom, on the stovetop. You lived that life.
Absolutely.
And for people that don't know, they would cut that stuff with chemicals that you wouldn't even think about ingesting.
Right. Well, whenever you break it right down, every chemical that you use to manufacture methamphetamine is a toxic chemical in and of itself. It is only through the mixing, the chemical bond that is made during the making of it, that allows you to ingest it. But it is poison. Yeah. Make no mistake.
Yeah. And people would ingest that, and once you got hooked, you would ingest it without a single thought that the guy making it couldn't have got through 7th grade science class. Had put all those together. And stuff.
I actually, for my birthday in 2000 and I want to say 8, on the yard of Vandalia, got the recipe for the manufacturer. Yeah. And so whenever I came home that time in 2009, that is exactly what I did. Almost immediately started manufacturing methamphetamine, not for sales, but so that, like, I worked a job, I bought the chemicals myself. You know what I mean? I didn't steal anything. It was so that I could support my own drug habit without having to do commercial methamphetamine, which is ridiculous.
One of the things you talk about keeping a job, and I've seen this often, and it almost sounds like you may fit in this category, that you can be a functioning addict at times, to where you could get up and go to your job.
Oh, yeah. There were points in my life since I got out in 2016. That's whenever my husband and I started dating, where I have worked 2 jobs and been a full-time college student, but all the time using, until that cannot ever, of course, I was a needle junkie. So that's not sustainable for very long periods of time. And it's also not sustainable whenever you decide that you don't want to see your parole officer for whatever reason, you know.
So we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
And your story is so compelling. The work you're doing is so great. If you could tell somebody today, that a parent that may see the signs of their child heading that direction, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say call us.
At Lane Change.
At Lane Change. We have a very good therapist that we subcontract with. We have a couple of people that work there that are very good with adolescents. And if you get up underneath of it at a young age, because most generally it's going to be friends, psychological problems, and emotional problems. And if you can get up under it and figure out where the trauma is and how to get them hooked in with other people, you can maybe head it off.
Stacey, you probably never thought you'd hear this from me. Very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
The drug issue is very real in Laclede County, as it is in any county in this state. Methamphetamine, whether it's fentanyl issues, the use of alcohol, there are resources here that never existed before, and more resources to come, and we're going to have shows on that. October is Drug Awareness Month. I just would implore that all of you take an opportunity to step back, look at this community. Where can you help with resources here in this community? Many of them are nonprofit and would enjoy sitting down and talking to you about what they are doing and how you can help them. I would also ask you to please support the Laclede County Drug Court. They are doing remarkable work. In 2016, when I ran for sheriff, I said we could not arrest ourselves out of the drug problem. It was going to have to be a combination of law enforcement and resources within this community. Again, people like Stacey are making a huge difference in this community. I'm David Millsap, and this is Lebanon Now.